Hi, I'm Rob Eames, relationship coach and certified trainer with the Center for Nonviolent Communication. And this is a companion video that I'm offering for an article that I wrote recently about pain talk. And pain talk is so important in relationships. And the title of the article was Pain Talk When Upset Takes the Mic. How are you familiar with that? Where all of a sudden, why did I say that? I regret saying that. I don't even believe that. Why did I say that? That's not even what I want or what I mean. And that's part of what pain talk is. And so in this short video, we'll talk about why pain talk happens, what it sounds like. We'll talk about what it feels like in the state that leads to more probability for pain talk to come out. And we'll talk about ways to relate to pain talk as the speaker. So when I notice that in me, and when I have an urge to say something that comes from upset or from anger or from distress, and the way as a listener. What can you do as a listener? Because sometimes when I'm hearing, it's helpful to know that, oh, this is pain talk, and to hold it as that's what it could be, right? And we'll talk about why that's important. But also to listen to the content under the surface level content, which can be hard, and sometimes not possible. So we'll talk about that as a listener. About that's not the only option, but we'll talk about listening for feelings and needs, and listening for that deeper content under the surface content. So if this is relevant to you, if this sounds like something that could be helpful, I encourage you to stick around. Lots of links to resources in the description. And also, I'm really passionate about getting these materials out to as many people as possible. And so if subscribe, like, comment, sign up for notifications, and that tells all the algorithms that this is valuable content, that you found it useful, and then it gets recommended more to other people who are searching for similar things or have similar needs and interests. And so that helps me out. So I really appreciate that. So a place to start is, what is pain talk? And pain talk is a label that we use, and I use in my work in coaching to share with people a way to identify something and give it a name, which is those times when you or someone else say something that you don't mean, say something that feels like it's coming from a place of judgment, criticism, diagnosis. And so just to give you a sense of what it sounds like, you never listen to me. That's one where it's about always or never, or you can't even pay attention. A diagnosis, right? You can't even pay attention to me for 5 minutes. You've never been able to do that. Again, where it's about always and never, it's about categorical thinking. It's about diagnoses. You are one of this, and there's something wrong with you. It can be pain talk about, I don't think this is going to work out. I think I'm at my wit's end. I'm done with this. So it can even be about decisions about ending the relationship. And so for some couples that come to me, or some individuals that come to me for coaching work, that's one of the things that's part of their distress, is the cycle of breaking up and getting back together. And so we'll talk about where that might come from, not always, but sometimes, toward the end of this video, and also what to do about it. So that's pain talk. So in this next section, why do we do that? And so one way to share that is that we have a window of tolerance in our emotional lives. And that part of an emotional experience is what's called the felt sense, or the sensations of it. The constriction, the relaxation, the temperature, the heat, the cold, the movement, the energy, in my body to do something about it, prepare for action. It could feel like a movement toward or a movement away in that energy. And that movement toward, part of that could be, I want to say something. I have to get this off my chest, right? And that's a thought in me that's part of the emotional experience too. So emotional experiences come with thoughts about what this means, how you're interpreting it, what to do, where the other person might be coming from. And so the felt sense, these bodily sensations, and the thoughts are two of the components of an emotional experience. And both of them are contribute to pain talk, because the upset takes some skills offline when it gets outside of our window of tolerance. And so each of us have a personal window of tolerance. When we're in that window of tolerance, we have access to choice, to creativity, to compassion for yourself and for the other, to calm and groundedness, to flexibility of options and flexibility of thinking, to creativity. And sometimes those are, a lot of those qualities are called the 9 C's. And what happens when we go outside of our window tolerance, either, hyper arousal or hypo arousal. So hyper arousal is when, this is more than I can handle. This is overwhelming. Hyper arousal is, when the sympathetic nervous system, shuts the system down. The nervous system says, this is too much. Let's go into checking out or shutdown or distancing ourselves or dissociation. So those are, when we're outside of the window of tolerance, then skills go offline. Communication skills, flexibility, creativity, compassion skills, connection to agency and influence and choice and what to do about it. And it becomes, this is more than I can handle. And that's when all the skills that you practice and that you know and that you have in other areas of your life, now in this situation, become less accessible. And we tend to do and say things we don't mean. And that's where pain talk comes from. So then the next thing is, well, what do we do about it? And so one thing is conceptual understanding, about understanding window of tolerance and understanding what pain talk is and the kind of damage and hurt and impact that it can have, and having some vision for what your showing up in relationships is like and what relationships can be without that and the motivation of that or what that would be like. And another part of it is getting really good at noticing what it feels like in those moments before the pain talk arises. And also noticing that it arises as a thought first, and then it comes out of your it can either stay there as a thought or it can come out of your mouth. And sometimes that happens within a millisecond. So I don't want to kid you or be unclear that sometimes it might feel like it's, immediate. And that's what's called an automatic habitual reaction. And part of this is by practicing being with those feelings, being with that, what it feels like in that state, is that we can slow that experience down. And let me share more about that. So the practice is to think about those times when you said or did something that you regret, something that wasn't in alignment with your values, something that had an impact on another person, that came out as diagnosis, evaluation, criticism, judgment, and landed with them as, ooh, ouch, that really hurt me. And to remember some recent experiences and to think about immediately before you said or did that thing. Let me give you an action one. Storming out of the room. I'm done with this, right? Storming out. Or, slamming your fists on the table. I need you to listen to me now. So I say it all the time, so I'll say it again here, that all emotions are welcome as part of the human experience. And not all expressions of emotions lead to connection and collaboration and understanding. And so we want to focus on choosing those expressions that lead to, oh, you get what it's like for me, and oh, let's partner in what we're going to do about this and consider our options, right? So that's why we're doing this. And so think about one of those situations recently in a low to moderate intensity situation. And that might sound like, well, what is that when I'm outside of my window of tolerance? Just something that was, just barely outside of your window of tolerance, not the thing where it was devastating and so overwhelming that you lost it. So if possible, choose one of those. Something that's recent, something that's in the past. That's the easier place to practice. And so then think, what did it feel like in that state immediately before I did or said that, before you did or said that? And what does it feel like in your body? So was there tension? Was there an energy? Was there a heat? Was there a constriction? I'm just offering some. I'm not saying that's what it's going to be like for you, but those are some of the common themes that I hear from other people. And the thing is, in this moment, just take as long as you can and know that you're in control here for a few seconds, for a minute. Just be with those feelings. That you are the one that's aware of those feelings. You're the one that's aware of that felt sense. You're the one who's in relation to that felt sense. You're the one who's in control of being able to stop it. Being able to say, I've had enough of this and I'm going to go think about something else. And it can be helpful to have in your back pocket something else you're going to think about. So something pleasant, a walk that you took, or a piece of music that you listened to that was really uplifting, an experience with a friend that felt connecting, right? So as you let go of this experience that we're practicing, connecting to the felt sense of what that state was like before pain talk, to have something to go to afterwards that you can think about as a way to letting go of that memory. So in doing that, what happens? It's a practice of at least two things, and I'm simplifying here. One is identifying with the knower, the awareness that's in relationship to the experience. And the second thing is a growing level of tolerance at different levels of those states and disassociating, not dissociating, but disassociating, or breaking the connection is a better way to say, the automatic connection between the pain and the pain talk, or the pain and the action. And so giving more space to choose to choose something else, right? And so in this practice, there was nothing to do. You're sitting by yourself. You're doing this on your own. There's nothing to act upon. And so it's just about being with that felt sense. The other part of the practice is to notice what thoughts come up. So it's very common that when you're sitting with a felt sense, a thought might come up. Why am I doing this? I don't like this. I wish this would end. This is more than I can tolerate. And to notice those as thoughts, that it's not the felt sense of the bodily sensations, it's thoughts about them. And just to name that as a thought. That's a thought. And to hold it lightly, that it's something that you're creating in you in relationship to these experiences. It's not the truth. It doesn't have to be that way. And it only has as much weight or energy as you give to it. And so you can just lightly connect with that thought, be aware of it, and choose not to give it any energy. Let it go, recognize it as a thought, and let it go. And again, you're in the role of awareness, of the knower, of the observer of the bodily experiences and the thoughts. And then you get to choose where to place your attention and where to give your energy and what to do about it. What, if anything, to choose and how to respond to it. So again, these things, practice being in that role of observer, of knower, of awareness, of relating to what's happening, of choosing where to give energy and focus. And the second thing is creating more space for choice about how, if and how to respond to it, and breaking the automatic connection to habitual reactions, which might include pain talk. So that is as the speaker, and that's the role of the speaker. And so what do you do in that space? So more details about the role of the speaker. In the speaker role, I can do a translation. A thought might come up, they can't focus. There's something wrong with them. They have a problem. They're always on their phone. There's nothing, they'll always be this way. Notice the always, never, the categorical thinking, the diagnosis, the judgment that there's something wrong with another person. And it can be that pain talk is toward me too. So, I'm always such a screw up. Why am I so forgetful? And maybe there's something wrong with my brain, right? So I can do this to myself too. Pain talk isn't always external. It can be internal in the way that I talk to myself, self-talk. And so a step as a speaker is to translate that. So in that one, they can't focus. They never listen to me. Maybe there's something wrong with them that they are always on their phone. Translate that into coming back to me. And I have a separate article about the U-turn, which I'll link below too. This is the U-turn practice. Noticing when my thoughts are about the other, when they're judgments, accusations, diagnoses, when they're demands. Oh, you must do this or else I will explode. That's also a type of pain talk. Bring it back to me. So in that example I just used, I'd like them to focus on me. I'd like to have focus and attention and presence. I'd like to be heard. I'd like for there to be a space where there aren't distractions. How does that sound in terms of it's not about them, it's not about what's wrong with them. I bring it back to what's important to me. The opportunity, the practice, the pivotal change is to stop pain talk before it comes out whenever possible, and to do that translation in my head. Do that translation and to translate it and to say what that translation is. When I do the U-turn and it's about what I want, what's important to me, what I like more of, hey, would it be okay if we put phones away and so that we can have a space without distractions? And I'd really like for you to hear me for 5 minutes. Notice the difference between that and the diagnoses, the accusations, the judgments, the criticisms, the demands. Hey, you need to listen to me now. Put your phone away. Right? What's wrong with you? You need to put your phone away. Notice even the quality of the way it's not about just the words, it's also about coming from that space of choice, agency, clarity about what's important to me and a way that I can influence getting more of it. So that's as a speaker. I invite you to try that on. I invite you to really take a look at the U-turn practice. I'll put a link to that at the end of this too. And last thing is as a listener. What do you do as a listener? Well, as a listener, it can be hard, right? So someone's talking to you and it's pain talk. Depending upon the nature of the relationships, there's lots of discernment here. Is it a close relationship? Is it a friend? Is it a colleague at work? Is it a romantic partner? Is it a family member? You know, is it a sibling? Or is it an acquaintance or a neighbor? Like, so how to respond as a listener and what your options are depending upon the nature of the relationship, the nature of the connection. So this isn't a one size fits all. But in some of those closer relationships, there's something that's important to them. I care about them. This sounds like pain talk. It's about me. And so first thing is recognize it, right? It's about me. It's about what's wrong with me. It's about what I'm doing wrong. And it's about maybe that they can't even stay in the relationship. Maybe that this isn't something that's viable anymore. That's pain talk, typically. Not always, but sometimes. And so identifying as potential pain talk, and then making guesses in me to let go of the surface content, to hold it only as much as to say what's important to them. So, in other words, you're always at work. Why are you? You must not care about me. So those are things about what I'm doing wrong, what my motives are, what I think, things that the other person doesn't have access to, and then let me take it a step further. I can't take this anymore. If you're not willing to have work-life balance, then this is over, right? So about demands, about threats, that's pain talk. This is pain talk, or it might be pain talk, right? We don't know you don't know what's going on with the other person. It could be that this is what they mean, but this could be pain talk. And so holding that surface level only as much as to get to the deeper level content. What might they be feeling? What might they be needing? So let me try that on. So this is in me first. So what might they be feeling? What might they be feeling and needing? They want my presence as what they're needing. They want balance, and that they're feeling upset. They're feeling distressed. They're feeling angry. They're feeling frustrated, right? So trying it on, I'm frustrated, and I think that they would be longing for more connection and time together. So hey, I'm hearing that you're frustrated. I'm hearing that you'd like more for us to have more balance and more time together. A couple of important things is one, it's a guess. Another important thing is I can't always be in a position to do that. It would be unreasonable to think that you always have the capacity to do that, to hold the surface level content, to name it as pain talk, to hold it lightly, and to translate it. It's not always possible. Sometimes as a listener, it's, hey, what I just heard you say a lot of things about me that are painful to hear. I need a break, right? So those boundaries and discerning what you're up for in that moment with this relationship, with the quality of what you heard, with what's come before and what might be coming afterwards. Maybe you need to move on to you've got a commitment later. I'm not up for this right now. It's not a good time. Maybe you're tired. All those reasons, right? There's a resource about how resourced I am, a resource about how resourced I am. And I'll link that below too, because that's a way to check in with that. Am I up for this? In those times when you are, offering that, hey, I'm hearing that you're frustrated. Maybe you're frustrated because you'd like for us to spend more time together. You'd like to have more time, shared time, and more balance in how we spend our time. And even that, you can hear there that I kind of didn't frame it as a question first. It's that taking the time because it's important it's framed as a question. Hey, are you frustrated because because you want more balance in our life. Yeah, that's what I want. Maybe is how they respond. But after that, often what happens is settling down or a relaxation. Hey, I'm sorry about what I just said. It's really about that. And so it can fundamentally sometimes shift. It may take a couple of rounds of offering those translations, those empathy guesses, and offering them as guesses. Openness that it may not be it, and allowing the person to clarify and respond if they're up for it. They might not be up for it either. One last place to close is with what I call in the article the nuclear option. The nuclear option is I can't do this anymore, or this will never change. I'm so done with this, right? Where it's threats, it's demands. If you don't do this, there'll be punishment, and that punishment can be the end of the relationship. Sometimes when that has happened multiple times, or when it happens even one time, it can be something to be taken seriously. That is this something that feels like something that you're up for? Does this feel like a relationship that you want to continue? Sometimes it can be what the other person means, so it's not always pain talk. It could be that they're letting me know, or letting you know that they made a decision, a thoughtful decision about it. It can be what they want the next step to be, but it can oftentimes be pain talk. And as both speaker and listener, I'm offering this to you as a way, because I've seen this be so painful in relationships, that if you're the speaker, can when you notice that pain talk come up, maybe this is the end of the relationship, or maybe I'm at my limit for what I can tolerate. Maybe this will never change, and that's the level of distress that I have, and I just give up. That sometimes what that means, or what's really going on, what's really at the root of it is, I want you to know how distressing this is. I want you to understand that. I want you to know how important whatever the topic is. I really need to be heard now, and I'm feeling like that I'm not sure that I'm being heard right now. And so really, sometimes what this is letting the other person know that this is really important. Hey, I really need I need us to focus on this. I really need you to hear me about what's important to me. This may be the second or third or fourth time that we've talked about this, and I really need something to change now. And that's really what it's about. And depending on life experiences and other relationships and what's happened previously in this relationship, it could be that that's a way of getting the other person's attention, that raising the escalating to that one of those nuclear options. So that's a short overview and offering about pain talk. I hope it was helpful for you. It feels good to share this. And again, if this is helpful to you and you know others where it might be helpful, please feel free to share it. There's a share button below. You can share the link. You can share it in email and text message and social media. That just helps me get the word out that I think these topics are important. I think that these offerings can be really helpful. I've seen them be helpful. And so I want as many people as possible to become aware of them and find use and get positive benefits from them. So consider liking and subscribing and signing up for notifications. Check out some of the other resources that I've linked to. I've talked about the U-turn, which is related to this, and also how resourced are you, which checking out that state and then doing the translation and the U-turn. And so those might be other resources that are relevant too. I was good to be with you, and I look forward to being with you again. Hope this was helpful.